To AskAmy. I have a question today from Marina. So Marina says, thank you for the fantastic and helpful work you do. My cousin, who was like a brother to me and my siblings, was run over by a car and passed away when we were young. I still remember what my aunt went through after his death. Then when I was a teenager, one of our friends committed suicide. My sons are 20 and 22 years old, and my biggest nightmare is to lose them. Thoughts about their death are constantly in my head. I try not to take them seriously and recognize there's just something my brain does, but I can't. To make matters worse, 3 of my oldest son's high school classmates died a couple years ago from carbon monoxide. One of my youngest son's friends had a freak motorcycle accident 2 weeks ago and passed away. It feels like my brain is hanging on to these incidents and telling me that I should worry because all of these deaths are evidence that this is something that could just as easily happen to us and that I should pay attention. I know my worrying can't and won't prevent any tragedies, but I don't know how to stop, and it's really affecting my life. So thank you, Marina, for sending this. And I just think this is such an important, the whole question, it really goes so much beyond these tragic circumstances and what you're worrying about right now, to really allow us to look in a really, really deep way at what's actually going on here. So I know when we're in the content of thinking, when we're in this happened and that happened and that happened, and it could just as easily happen to us. And then the mind is creating images and fears and worries about this happening to you and how would it be? And there's this whole creative process that feels amazingly real and true. And not true because this hasn't happened to your sons, but the way that the mind paints this, that it brings in pictures from the past, it throws them into the future, it swaps out the faces and the details, and then it leaves you feeling as if you need to do something. Really, if we strip it down, that's exactly what's happening here. It's bringing in stuff that's completely done and over, has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your sons, nothing to do with your future. And it's just all of that is getting churned up. And in a sense, of course it is. And I'll get to that in a minute. But all of that is getting churned up. But to really give it some real impact, it's like the mind kind of comes in and makes it about you and your future and your kids. And it could happen. And of course it could. Anything could happen to any of us. That means nothing. But it's more that it feels like it's kind of likely to happen, or that if you think about it, even though you say your worry isn't doing anything helpful, that's not the deeper belief, because it does feel like you're saying, you kind of do need to do something, like you should be on the lookout or whatever that is. That whole thing, that whole way that thought creates a future that does not exist, from a past that does not exist at all, is 100% universal. It's simply just what a mind does. And I know we can say that a million times, and we can all know that on some level, but it's not until we can kind of get behind it, get beneath it, and really see, wow, this is a creative process. This is not about me and my life. Me and my life are part of this creative process. You see that difference? This is not like, oh, here's Marina having these horrible thoughts about her sons. That's the way we're conditioned to look at it. That's not what's really going. There is no Marina sitting around having these thoughts about her and her sons. You and your sons are thought. It's all part of this big creative process. Now here's a me, and I could have the same fate as my aunt, and memories and feelings and all of this stuff comes in, and the whole thing is a mechanism of thought. It's a creative. Right now, when I say creative, I mean like it has no reality. It's created on the fly, on the spot, brought to life, but only in our heads. Look around, touch something. It's not here. None of this is real. None of this is real. But in here, it's like this huge thing that's so real. And this is the human condition. And this is like everything that I share always is us. We all see this at varying levels and to varying degrees, but it only, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but it's like it only matters. It only helps when we really see it deeper. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for you to really see this deeper. That these tragedies that happened in the past have absolutely nothing to do with anything to do with you or your life or your kids or your future whatsoever. Not even a little bit. Could something tragic happen to your children? Of course. It could happen to my children. It could happen to anyone's children. That has nothing to do with anything. That's just, it's universal. That has nothing to do with what you've been through. What you're experiencing points very clearly to the reflective nature of thought. You've had these traumas. The mind is spitting them out, trying to do something with them that it does not need to do. Like there's no processing or whatever, but it's like the thought is reflective. It finds things that have gotten a lot of attention, that have a lot of energy, that just have some oomph behind them. And it's like a house of mirrors. It's like everything's reflecting off of everything else. You hear about another tragedy, something happens to someone you know, there we go. Here comes the big creative process. And now it's about you and your life and your kids, because thought is always trying to be about me. That's all it is, right? It's always about me, or else it just doesn't get much attention. That's the whole purpose of thought, is to create this sense of I'm a me and all this stuff is real, except it's all made of the same stuff. It's all thought. So there's some old stuff that comes up, right? These old memories and old things that felt really traumatic. And that's something that's kind of another thing, but it's something to really kind of just see and like watch. Okay, this is what the mind does with that. But how it wants to jump in and spin it into a story about what might happen and what you should do now. I mean, it's pure fiction. It's pure creative stuff of imagination. It just has nothing to do with that. So I would really encourage you to, I know you see a bit about how thought works for sure, but the way you're feeling this and feeling really stuck in it, there's a lot more to see, and that's okay. That's totally okay. This is showing you kind of how much you've seen and how much more there is to see about this. If you truly saw this as just a repetitive tape playing that had nothing to do with you or your life, then it just wouldn't be an issue at all. It would not feel the way it does. So that's okay. We all have stuff like that, right? So the suffering is showing us, okay, there's more to see. I'm not seeing this clearly. I'm really bought into an illusion that doesn't look to me to be like an illusion, even though I intellectually know it's an illusion, doesn't feel like one. Perfect. We want to know that. So you get to kind of look more deeply there. And just another thing I want to mention to you is just, sometimes I think, I've seen this many, many times with people, that reflective nature of the mind, and even just the way that I guess just patterns of energy kind of want to come up and move through physically, emotional energy, all of that. Sometimes stuff kind of hits us in different ways in different times. There's no logic to it. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing we could or need to figure out in that. But if you're at a point where some of these old traumas are just kind of coming back up, maybe there's just some grieving to do. I mean, it's not uncommon at all that all of a sudden, years and years later, we're really hit by the death of our cousin that happened so many years ago or whatever. And again, the mind will fight that a little bit because it doesn't make sense. Well, this is so long and I already grieved this or whatever. Just throw all those rules out the window. They're just the mind talking. There's no actual rules. There's no rules to any of this. So I just say that to encourage you to really feel what you're feeling around these losses, because they are losses. It's really sad stuff when people die unexpectedly and young people die. I mean, it's just part of life that we really need to feel. What will happen though sometimes is if we kind of don't want to feel that, or we're like, no, this doesn't make sense, the mind, again, it'll just have to stay really busy to push that down. And it might stay really busy creating images about your sons in the future that are pure imagination, but it's another way that it just kind of keeps the attention up here, keeps the attention up in thought. And And that's not what we want. We want you to just feel what's moving through. And as you feel more okay, feeling what's moving through and being in what's actually here right now in the moment, even if that's grief about something that happened long ago, or grief about someone you don't know that well, or fear that comes up about the death of someone you don't know that well, that's okay. It's not going to make sense. This stuff doesn't make sense the way our mind thinks it should. Just feel it. And the more you're feeling whatever's truly here in a moment, the less imagination has to run to try to distract from all of that. I hope that makes sense, and see how relevant that is. It may or may not resonate, but I wanted to share it. But I think the biggest point for you is to just really see this reflective nature of thought. It doesn't want to just reflect and leave us with nothing. It tries to spin a story, and it tries to make sense of its reflections and tell you about your future. And it just doesn't mean any of that whatsoever, not even a little bit. So sit with this. Let me know how you're doing with things. I hope this lands, and I hope it helps others too. So thanks for sending your question. Send your questions to AskAmy at thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'll see you next time.